lovely people. I'm Sam, this is Shadow Harvest, and let's talk locale magics and ancestral callings and whatnot. I started thinking of all this because I had the wonderful privilege of being able to go back on the home countries of my ancestors. If you don't know, by blood, I am, very Italian. I feel like that is slightly evident as to how I appear the way I do. And then also I am Luxembourgish, mixed in with a whole bunch of white muttery. And then I get some of the fun Middle Eastern stuff because my mother was adopted by a lovely man from Baghdad, Iraq. But I just get all the benefits of the food, none of the melanin stuff. Anyway, so I got to go back to Luxembourg because I was interested in seeing the culture of some of my grandparents. And it was the first time I had ever been to that country in particular, and it was a bunch of fun getting to see a whole new side of the type of European that I come from, I guess. It's very interesting too because it is a small little country, if you don't know, nestled in between France and Germany. And it is such an intriguing individual culture all of its own, but clearly has been very influenced and has a shit ton of castles. It is quite small given all the conquering and passing forth of territories in Europe all the way back and forth all the time. And I was very intrigued though because of the climates. And I find it extremely interesting because of where I currently live now. I live in Portland, Oregon, where it is very cloudy, quite rainy, if you know anything about the Pacific Northwest. Famous for its beer, Pinot wines, good with, people who are really into hiking. There things like this that are just, I think I knew a lot from the Pacific Northwest, and it was one of the main reasons I ended up moving out here. I remember when I was younger, I felt like I wasn't quite in the right place, I guess you could say. I felt spiritually as if I was being called to see more, move around. Now, of course, not everyone is afforded that privilege. Lots of people maybe would love to go and explore and see, but traveling is fucking expensive. Even just to get across the country in the United States is a lot. But I had the wondrous privilege of being able to leave Chicago, and I tried and traveled out. I went to the Bay Area in California, got priced out of there, plus didn't quite feel right. I even tried Japan for a little while. Ultimately not for me. Moved down to Arizona, where that was a time and a half. Not great for me personally. I hope if you like the desert, you really love the fucking desert, because for me, no. That was a nope. And I remember when I stumbled up to Portland, Oregon, felt like I immediately just connected with the city, felt like I immediately connected with the weather patterns, with the access to nature, the hiking, all of the amazing things that is out here. And it just felt it felt like home. I don't really know how to describe it. I absolutely adore this city, love it oh so freaking much. And it is not a damn war zone. No, it's perfectly fucking fine. It's got some difficulties, sure. Every city does, but it's fine. In fact, it's wondrous, especially during the fall. And when I got to travel to Luxembourg and see all these amazing medieval places, I was struck by the fact that the weather and the climate is very similar. It's a little creepy, actually. Portland is known for its beautiful, gorgeous waterfalls. Luxembourg is known for several gorgeous, beautiful waterfalls. Lots of clouds, lots of rain. Lots of clouds, lots of rain. Beautiful four seasons. Does get a smidgen of snow. It over and over and over. The familiarities that I was finding was a little bit ridiculous, and it made me think a lot of, I wonder if there was something in me ancestrally that was calling out to a place like this because it is where my people be from. I even do enjoy, I remember when I visited Italy and seeing some of the Tuscan climates and stuff. I was definitely like, okay, this is interesting, but not quite my cup of tea per se. It was interesting to feel like this weird, almost nostalgia-ick quite vibe when I got to go and travel around that area. And it felt like something was like, oh yeah, I have lived here before. There is a connection there, but it wasn't this is where I need to be right now, if that makes sense. Whereas with Luxembourg, it was so interesting to be like amidst in a culture where everyone around me is speaking French and multitudes of other languages, because it's right dab smack in the center and people be speaking a whole lot of different things. And then like having like walking around in these medieval tunnels and what do they call them? They're called the casemates. Castmates? I'm not gonna be able to say them right. I'm so sorry if you actually know how to say these things correctly. But basically there's like these carved out areas of these medieval walls where people would hide and or use at the times for fortifications, or even lived in at some point as part of being in this gorgeous, huge medieval city that's been around for God knows how long, and seeing all these ancient castles and going up into these beautiful, gorgeous hills. And it was so funny to me to look around and to be like, oh, if I didn't know that I was in another country, and like seeing the subtle changes, the slightly different languages on signs, the older architecture, the different style of building versus the more modern way in America, I would feel like I was in Portland. And it felt so weird to me to feel so just like, oh yeah, no, this feels comfortable to me, so natural. So yeah, for sure, makes sense. And knowing that I'm so called to be here, because it's weird, I think, at times if you're a white person who's from a colonizer type family, right? Like, white as all hell. My family came over on the damn Mayflower. We were causing problems with the natives. My family history is not full of fantastic, wondrous people. Most recently, I would say yes, but there is still a cascade of assholes as well. And so it's odd at times to feel like, oh yeah, no, America's here, while also, being involved and wanting to, the whole like land back movement with natives, and like thinking and considering how like, yeah, no, this is not the place that we originated from, and how it was taken and continues to be policed is really fucked up and weird. And so having this odd sense of connection with a piece of land, I don't know, at times I war with it, because I love Portland, and if the only reason I would move away from here is if there is something very drastic or horrible that would happen that would cause me and push me to move. I adore the city. I adore the friends I have made here. I have now a boyfriend here. Like, it's like I'm building a full life that I enjoy and adore, and can only see it growing further within the city walls. And even spiritually, if it's interesting to leave offerings and stuff for feeling out for local spirits and seeing what's out there. But I do have this constant feeling of like, yes, I can reach out to the locality of the trees and the nature, and making sure I'm a good guardianship with it, not littering, always packing out when I camp, making sure, like, just taking care of the land and doing my best to make sure that I'm voting for things that also protect the land and protect the people taking care of it as much as it within my ability. It's still very weird to be like, yeah, but my people came in and took this from someone else, and that's really fucking shitty. And it's weird to think of like, oh, there is this other place that my family is now is several generations separate from, and I grew up very American, Italian American for sure, with all that comes with that, and having those cultural influences. But here's this other culture that was, I guess, kind of forgotten or pushed to the wayside, given just which of my families was, I guess, more pushy in their traditions over time. And so it's like, I didn't know much about Luxembourgish culture. I didn't know much about what type of their holidays, what they really focus on. I didn't get to know a lot of traditional foods or anything like that. Like, it was just Italian in my household over and over and over again, with like a smidge of Southern nonsense from my mother, thrown in a weird Middle Eastern thing. It's a weird mix in my family, I'll tell you that much. But to visit and to see these gorgeous old castles, to feel the sense of home in the weather, and to have that weird just feeling of rightness, it was like, oh, huh. Like, they say that stuff can be passed down through generations, right? Generational trauma, generational memories. And I really wonder if there is an aspect to that in a calling of places where you want to be and grow, and where you want to settle down and put down roots. Somewhere that was too hot, too deserty, too cold, too frigid, wasn't for me. And I was, while I had the means, able to get the hell out to explore. And it was really important, I think, spiritually, for me to feel that connection. I remember I had this most drastic thing, because I think the two climates are the most difference between Arizona and Portland. There's a huge disparity between those two, right? And I just remember at one point looking at the Phoenix landscape when I was living there and thinking, I know other people find this beautiful. I know they find solace or awe in these gorgeous landscapes and sunsets and these painted hills, and just find it utterly stunning. And I could see an aesthetic beauty in it, but it never did put me in the same sense of awe as like fog rolling over hills, and pines, and seeing cascading waterfalls, or I'm seeing a giant castle on a hill and seeing some fog roll in, and the cool crisp mornings, and then they're stunning. Like, it's very, and that's the type of thing where I realized, I was like, oh, I know this is so amazing and stunning. But I also didn't have to leave my country, my current country, to feel that. I feel that all the time when I just look up into the western hills beyond Forest Park in Portland, and I see the fog roll in there and see all the houses dotting the hill line, and looking down onto the city if I'm ever up in that direction. But going any of these gorgeous hikes, especially in the fall when all the colors are changing, that sense of awe is there. And I do want it, like, is that passed down to me a bit from my ancestors? Is there something of my great grandfather's people in me that's saying, yes, this is where you needed to be, child? The rain was important, the trees were important, where there is good beer, very important for you. This is good. Good wine too, lots of the big good wines. Big into Pinot Noir there. Big into Pinot Noir here. Is it my favorite? I prefer a Cabernet. But I think there's something about that. There is something about, I feel like, my ancestors reaching out to me, speaking to me in that manner. And it's interesting reconnecting to a culture that I am extremely interested in, because it is part of my heritage and it's not something I naturally got exposed to. Because it's like funny looking back at my childhood and seeing how many small little bits of Italian mysticism, culture, little superstitions, things like that were percolated into my childhood, even though I necessarily didn't like register it as like, oh, we were like that Italian of a family. It's like, oh no, actually there were a lot of things that we did that were culturally significant to that. But one of the things I did is I bought a cookbook while over there, an English one, thankfully, because oh my goodness, French is a tricky language for me. I'll get there eventually. I'm trying to learn it, but oh my goodness. So I got a Luxembourg cookbook with some stuff, so I think that'll be really fun to do, especially for some ancestor work. I am super intrigued, as well as doing a little bit of ancestor work, I think, this Samhain with the Luxembourgish side of my family. I'm gonna dig into my in-depth old family tree, because my mother has done a wondrous job in finding some great old photos or portraits of some of our old ancestors. So similarly to how I have other ancestor photos printed off in my house, I'm looking over right now at my Italian great-grandmother as she looks at me from her wedding portrait, and involving them, I think, more, and calling them in and seeing what they have to say to me, because I was just back to where they grew up, and see what they have to say. Maybe I can get a little guiding, a little reading, a little extra tarot, and cooking hopefully some delicious things that they also would enjoy. And I think this is what's so interesting, especially if you're someone who is a white mutt in America, and especially if you are, I think, curious about the ideas of, like, I don't know, because there's that saying right now, being like, white people have no culture. We do. It was just all taken away because of the white stupid nonsense and the white power bullshit. There is deep intrinsic culture in the places that we come from, and unfortunately, because of this weird, like, no, we all have to assimilate and be the same thing in America, over the years, we've lost some of those things. And so it's fun to deep dive back into, for me, like, the Italian folk practices, and seeing, I was so interested in some Luxembourgish myths about sirens, and there's some, like, and like, it's a totally landlocked area, but the sirens be big there. There are sirens and sea motify things all in between. I guess it has something to do with all the rivers, like that. That's the only thing that can make sense to me. And it just super fascinating to see the different pieces of mythology and fairy tales, and like what was clinging on, what folklore was there that is so different from the Italian stuff that I've been looking into over time. So anyway, that was just a little bit of reflection on ancestors and kind of like how our heritage can feed into things. And again, I encourage anyone who, if you're feeling like you don't have a culture, you're like, what one of my answers do I reach out for, especially if you're a white person like me and you're like, some of my ancestors can be toxic as all fuck. That's fine. Just keep looking. It is, I think, I don't know, it's sad to think that some people might have that idea of like, oh, I can't look into my ancestors because mine were the problematic ones. It's like, not every person was, though, right? Like, there were people fighting the good fight too. There are people who are good, genuine people too. You probably do have a couple assholes. I think we all have some assholes in our family trees down the line, but try to find the good ones, the good little stories. And if you even can't find the good little stories of individual people, maybe just tracking down, getting a read on what your people were about. Go and see some of the culture that Europe should have, I guess, our ancestors should have brought with us from the European continent, and instead it was kind of shoved out of us. And take it back, reclaim it a bit, see if we can explore it and enjoy it better. Anyway, that was today's video, and there'll be more and more and more coming, because it is Youtober. Of course, if you have requests for me, anything specific you'd love for me to talk about and or explore, discuss, all of that, comment down below, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Okay, bye-bye.